Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 141, and today we're going to be doing battle with Fizz Riven. And so, before we jump in and talk about Fizz Riven, the spoiler season has started for the new set. The set is called Awakening, and Riot released Kayn a day or two ago, and they've started to do the daily reveals for the new cards. It's kind of interesting to me. It seems like the reveals tended to be tied to seasonals. Doesn't seem like it's going to be like that this time, but let's go ahead and jump in and start talking about these. So, first and foremost, the big addition to the set is the new keyword, card type, whatever we're going to call this, in equipment. And so, equipment essentially function just like attach. You can't equip and attach a unit. You can only have one of the specific cards ever attached to a unit. And so, if we played Great Hammers onto our unit, it would pick up +2 attack, +0 health, and then it would also gain the Overwhelm keyword. Makes our Legion Rearguard quite meaty, am I right? The second thing that we can pull off with the equipment is you can just physically play these as a unit. I feel like I saw that. I don't think I'm wrong with it. I'm pretty sure you can play an equipment as a unit. That sounds kind of weird to me, but I may have misread that. So you wouldn't really want to play the Great Hammer since it doesn't have any health, but if you move over to a card like Draconic Bands, it does have health and it is able to come onto the board and do combat stuff. Now, again, that sounds really weird to me. The Draconic Bands aren't just going to be, floating around and punching stuff, right? It made sense with Yumi coming on the board, but not so much with these things. And so maybe I'm wrong with that. Who knows? You probably know the rules better than I do. The next thing I saw with this is silence doesn't work on these equipment. And so very much like with the attachability, if you are used to attaching a Papercraft Dragon to something, your opponent silences it. Your unit still kept the +2/+2 and the double strike. The same thing applies with the unit or with the equipment. And so, in terms of rating these for constructed, I feel like this is going to be very similar to what we saw with Magic and equipment, in that it was a limited superstar, right? We don't have Expedition around any longer, but in limited formats, if you were able to spend 2 mana, put it on a unit, have that unit trade up, and then get to reuse the equipment later, that was a pretty good deal. And you saw lots and lots of usages of them across the formats. I struggle to see a card like Draconic Bands really making the crossover into constructed play. This is just a pretty heavy investment for a pretty small return. And so I'm curious which of these are able to make the kind of crossover into constructed play. I feel like if Expedition was still here, we would be a lot more excited about these cards than we currently are. But to kind of drive home this point, the cards that I would expect to be good are like down here at the bottom where we have the Dark and Ballista. It's on the bottom row. I'm trying to highlight it a little bit, but it gives your unit +2 attack for 1 mana. When it's equipped, it deals 1 to your Nexus. It's a pretty decent aggro piece of equipment, right? If we want to, say, play a Legion Rearguard on turn 1, play another 1-drop on turn 2, and then equip the Dark and Ballista, if our opponent then has to trade into that one of our 1-drops, we'll have the opportunity to replay the Ballista if it doesn't get the damage in, and then if it does deal damage, great. And so we have this nice early game piece of equipment, but it doesn't do too much in the late game, right? We aren't super excited about just +2 attack, and that's where something like this flip into Naganita the Zareta, big unit, big word full of letters coming out of my mouth, really having some potential to be strong. And so I'm curious to see with the equipment, they tend to either be good or unplayable. And so it's going to be interesting seeing the equipments like the Dark and Ballista having potential, or if we come up here and look at something like Catalyst version 1.0, to where it doesn't give any stat boosts, but your spells and skills deal an extra point of damage, as we've seen here in recent times with the big blow-ups of the like of Riptide Rex. This is something that would have quite a bit of potential. If you're doing a lot of work with the Ravenbloom Conservatory and don't really want to do all that work, you can now do it for 3 mana with the Catalyst, assuming that your unit survives as the Riptide Rex blast goes off. And so these are the kind of things I think will be interesting, right? If it gives you a very powerful effect, or if it is just very stat deficient. I don't expect to see too much out of things like Where did you go? The dragon card. I can't find it anymore. Here it is. The +3/+3 draconic bands. I think the last thing to make note of before we stop our chit-chatting about equipment is they are still branded by region, right? In Magic, if you wanted to play a card like Batterskull, or you wanted to play a Bone Splitter or a Skull Clamp or whatever, they just cost colorless mana. You could put them into any deck, but these are region locked here in Runeterra, and so the Draconic Bands can only go into a Targon deck. You can't just include it in your Bandle City Demacia number, just not the way the game works. And so interesting to see how that plays out as well, if there's factions that just don't get equipment, or if we see a lot of things like the Catalyst in P and Z, to where it just doesn't provide stats but provides neat things. And then if we're looking at, say, the Darkened Ballista or the, I don't know, Bone Puncher, whatever this thing was called, the Great Hammers, those are, very Noxus-centric, and it makes a lot of sense there. So, curious how that plays out. Now, the next thing to talk about these before we actually jump in and talk about Kayn is we do start to see this style of ability onto the Shadowblade Fanatic. So once you've equipped an ally, and so we're going to have these style of abilities running around. This was also something that was kind of common in Magic, as to where you would get some kind of a bonus if you equipped something. So you would have, say, a unit that would get +1/+1 while it had an item equipped to it. You would have units like the Shadowblade Fanatic, to where if they saw you equip something, then another ability would happen. And I expect that we're going to see quite a bit of this. But, with equipment being a fairly generic ability, I feel like this is something we're going to get to see throughout the entirety of Runeterra. And, we're going to start getting to see the more classic kind of cards that we saw in League of Legends, or I guess we should say the classic items we saw League of Legends make its way into Runeterra. And so, with those done and said and out of the way, that does bring us to our champion of the day in Kayn. Unfortunately, I think he's going to be extremely challenging for us to evaluate at this point. It's kind of a very odd champion to have first. He has a little bit of everything going on with him, but we don't know exactly what we have in store for us in terms of these cards. And so I don't know whether to say Kayn is going to be good or bad or even interesting, just because we don't know what these things exist are. And so Kayn, he is a Runeterran champion. He is the Shadow Reaper. And so you can put any number of cultists into your deck. This works just like Bard and the Chimes, or like Evelyn with the Husks. We have these cards keyworded to cultist that you can include in your deck. And then his deck building shtick is, once you have summoned 3 cultist units, you get to draw a Kayn. And this sounds to me like something that only happens once. I don't think that it's for every 3 you play, you get to draw a Kayn. So if you trade your first one away, you don't get to come out and try and redraw another one. And so looking at him just stat-wise, we don't know what's going to exist with the cultists, but we can at least look at his stats, and they look pretty bad, right? A 2/5 challenger for 5 mana is a bad deal. We do need to check out this auto-equip, the Darkened Scythe. That just means that this attaches to him immediately when it comes into play, and that's this one over here to the right, that when you attack, you grant the Darkened Scythe +1 attack, and then that in turn is going to give Kayn a bonus that lets this build up across the game. So if your Darkened Scythe gets blown up, or I should say if your Kayn gets blown up, you can equip the Scythe to something else. But if we're just going to call him right out the gates a 3/5 challenger for 5 mana, that's a pretty bad deal. He does have some self-built-in protection, to where he kills an enemy, he heals 2, which is kind of nice, but he's going to need some work. And so we're going to have to see with Kayn, how small is the format? Are we able to come out and do a bunch of battles against, say, Bandle City, right? This would be a potentially powerful ability against Bandle City, since their units are all so small, but it's going to be fairly bad against something like Noxus or against Freylord, to where the units are all big. And so we're going to have to, kind of see the size of the format, or see if he has access to just strike abilities, right? So if we get him paired into Demacia, we use him with a concerted strike or whatever to get that strike in, maybe that'll turn out to be something powerful. But as it stands, just taking a peek at him from the start, it looks to be fairly weak. The last thing we'll talk about with Kayn before we go to his flip is he is keyworded to darken, right? I don't exactly know what that means, or what this title thing is supposed to be called. I call it a keyword. I know it's not a keyword, but he is a darkened. And so I'm sure that there's other cards that are going to interact with darken. And so if we do look at this, from a step back, and say, okay, he has Darkened, he has Equip, he has an Origin ability. Maybe that's like all enough together to really kind of piece something, but I can't really see it at this point because all the cards haven't been released. And so we don't know what the Darkens will look like, the equipments will look like, the cultists will look like, that dude that gets excited about seeing you equip something. Don't know how much of that stuff's going to be going around, so again, it's fairly hard to evaluate this. But we can take a peek at his flip sides, and so he either flips basically into the Shadow Assassin, which is a big Usari, or he flips into a big Overwhelm Bro. And so neither of these are particularly exciting to me, but, you know, having a reasonable game ender is never something that's bad. And so I think you do have some kind of interesting concepts, and okay, I have a unit that comes down, interacts with the board, kills a unit, and now that the board is taken advantage of, I don't just have this like shitty 4/4 unit on the board. It upgrades into something pretty big that should be able to close out the game. And so conceptually, that doesn't sound too bad, but I think in practice, that's probably not going to be super strong. And so I think the last kind of two things to take note of here are I think the Darkened Scythe still sticks around, right? The Shadow Scythe and the Corrupted Scythe have different names. And so when he flips, right, when I level up Recall Me, and then he transforms me into either Rast or the Shadow Assassin. And so I think it leaves the Darkened Scythe around, so you get a little bit of a bonus card out of it. But granted, I'm not entirely sure how that works. It seems like the Scythe should change depending on which ability you choose, right? So if you flip into the Shadow Assassin, the Darkened Scythe should switch into Shadow Scythe, but that's not how it reads. So I don't know if you just get a bonus card out of this or not. The last thing I wanted to call out as we talk about Kayn, because I don't have too much to go by with him, is we do see down here the Furious Wielder. Not the Welder, it's a Wielder. And this is a spell that has cultists attached to it. We haven't seen this yet. I'm not surprised to see this come about in the game, but we haven't seen these keyword titled kind of things attached to spells. And so we've seen our fill of dragons and yordles and the like, but we haven't seen a yordle spell or a dragon spell. The cultist spell here is the first one. The bard one doesn't quite count, right? The bard stun says chimes on the card. It doesn't say, I don't know, Bard Clan or Chime Clan or, or however that should read. This is the first one with the spells, and so that's another interesting thing that I think we should see coming up in the near future. But I wish we had, a little bit more to go on. I don't feel the need to roll through all of these cards. The cultists at least seem fairly reasonable, right? The Forsaken Bakai here has a decent collection of stats. He's a keyworded bro that has Predict attached to him. That's fine. A 4-attack scout unit is potentially quite strong. And so we do have some interesting cards coming out of the cultists, but as we did just have a bit of a miss with Evelyn, it's kind of hard to gauge how good those are going to be. And as I feel like everyone kind of undervalued Bird and Esmuth in their ultimate strength, I think we just kind of need to get the full picture of the full picture of the cultists before we make too many rash decisions. But man, Kayn, he does have a lot going for him, right? In terms of the Runeterra ability, the Darken keyword, the Equip keyword, all of these different things. It's going to be a matter of seeing if he can really find a specific home or if he is just too spread out to be really effective in a cohesive deck. And so, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump back to our Fizz Riven. This is just going to get me talking longer. I hope you all just fucking strapped in. We're ready for me to not play games and just sit around and talk about shit. And so, I've been kind of postulating this idea over the past few videos of what is a control deck in Runeterra, right? As I came from Magic and came from Hearthstone, it was very easy to see a lot of these kind of like spell-centric decks. They would try and stall out the game with heal. They could go over their base level of starting health, whether or not that's just the way Magic works, or armor in Hearthstone. And you're able to play these decks that could really go and look to extend out the game for a long time, and then really just grind your opponent down and win with, a random 10-cost card in your deck or something. And we don't really see that in Runeterra, and I'm kind of like trying to put together the concept of what a control deck really looks like in Runeterra. It's like, yes, you can play some kind of Karma Shadow Isles deck, but is that really like the realistic competitive standard of what a control deck is? My kind of standing is the control decks just kind of win the game on turn 9, and that's where Riot seems to be pushing the game. And so it was a little odd before the 3-1-3 patch with how quickly Talia Lysandra and the Winding Light could close out a game, but I'm starting to think that these like Winding Light decks and Talia Lysandra decks are just what the control decks of the format are. And then if we look at something like a Trundlemere, just closing out the game with Feel the Rush or closing out the game with War Mother's Call, I think that these are, realistically the control decks of the format. And then you just run into what the ceiling that is the Sun Disk, right? If you want to get ultra greedy in terms of going late, then the Sun Disk is just going to annihilate you. And I'm kind of surprised the Sun Disk hasn't rolled itself back into this format as it stands. And it's not something that I would be surprised to see make an impact here in the next week or two once the format starts to settle down. But I think the kind of like 3 branches of decks that we're going to start to see are, your kind of classic aggro decks, your decks like Pirates that have a bunch of really aggressively statted 1 and 2 drops that try to finish off the game with burn spells. I think then you're going to see more mid-rangey style decks. You're going to have your Scouts of the world, your Poppy-based decks, your Bard-based decks. These decks that use the concept that I use of beating the Sun Disk, right? Where you have to have an Overwhelm, an Elusive, or a Rally to win the game. These are going to be your kind of mid-rangey styles, and then your control decky styles are going to be the decks that just close out with that Feel the Rush kind of card, or with the Sun Disk kind of card, that ultimate big powerful effect that pops off on like turn 8 or turn 9. And so, as this is kind of how the format is evolving, I think that with the recent nerfs to the Talia decks and to the Winding Light, that we're going to start to see basically turn 9 be when you have to win the game. And if you can't win the game before turn 9, then you need to kind of really evaluate and assess what you're doing. And so the way that I'm kind of curious about going with that now is through the Papercraft Dragon and Fizz. I think that this should kind of solidly fit as what we're going to call a mid-range strategy. I was very interested in revisiting the Papercraft Dragon now that it's been nerfed up to 6 mana and see how these decks hold up. And so they're decks that, if left to their own devices, are just going to come in and crush you. They don't really care what your health total is. This isn't a deck that's going to say try and do 4 damage and then 4 damage and then 8 damage and then decimate. This is a deck that's going to try and do all 20 in a single turn. And it should be able to kind of punish a lot of these control deck kind of strategies, to where if you don't have a vengeance to stop what we're doing, then we're just going to outright kill you. And so I'm kind of interested to see how Fizz Riven fits in with the meta that I've been seeing over the past day and today. It's very polarized, right? We're having a lot of slow decks like Darkness and a lot of slow decks like Trundlemere, and then we have a lot of fast decks like Pirates. There's not a lot of kind of mid-rangey strategies to where I think like the Shurima versions of Papercraft Dragon have the chance to pop off. And so I did want to come in with the Noxus version here, so we would have access to Blade Squire, Yordle Squire, Runeweaver, ways to come out and block units from Pirates while not just completely giving up the ideas that we have a late game here in the Papercraft Dragon. In terms of the deck building here itself, this is pretty similar to the lists we've been playing in the past. We got another kitty. Look at this. We got a different kitty. You all miss her? She's the dumb one. She decided to come and hang out. I lost my train of thought when the kitty popped up. No, where I was kind of going with this, I wanted it to be good against the aggressive Noxus decks, but I'm curious if we shouldn't switch into the fairies version, right? I traditionally don't play the fairies version. I like the style we're playing here, to where we just come in and boom ya, right? I like having this really focused and OTK kind of thing in mind, to where the fairies deck can kind of branch out into a board building up deck. It has the opportunities to kind of build up a spell shielded unit and OTK through a Owlcat, whatever they're called, the little 2/1 fairy bird with spell shield. And I'm not sure if we need to kind of switch into that kind of idea, especially since the Papercraft Dragon is now expensive, and if we want to equip it for 4, we need to come in and start playing the Fairy Lantern. And so I just kind of want to put the tip in and see what it feels like. I think that this deck might have a lot of opportunity for goodness right now, but again, I'm not sure if the aggressive OTK type strategy or the fairy type strategy would be the way to go. If the Fizz action the action Gnar or the action Renekton style decks would be the way to go. I just want to really come out here and experiment a little bit with this new meta and this new format and see how the Papercraft Dragon holds up now that it has been nerfed. And so that is what we're going to be doing battle with today. I checked out our deck to see if the pay-to-win price needed to be paid, and we're all good. We've been playing this for a while. Everything in here is all loaded up and premium. Look at that. We even got the premium Riven. Is our Fizz premium? Guy, sure is. Man, the whole deck is today, and so that, of course, feels pretty good. Let me double-check my skins. Now we're popping off. And okay, let's get ourselves into battle. Where you at, Fish OTK? I miss you, man. I miss playing with the Fizz. I really enjoy playing this style of deck. It's an interesting one. It's not usually a particularly strong ladder deck, right? The way the Fizz Riven tends to land as a deck that's good against what I call the long tail, is to where it's not that strong against the top decks. It's kind of coin flippy against the top 4 and 5 decks, but it's really powerful against everything else. And so with the new meta kind of shaping up, I'm curious how this plays out. We do run up immediately against Pirates with Twisted Fate Misfortune, and I'm curious as to how this matchup's going to play out as well. Again, I wanted to play Noxus specifically because decks like this are rising in popularity, and just running with like action and as your only early game play, not particularly stoked about it. So reasonable enough start. Got the nice trade on their early game play. Stall out the board just a little bit. See if we can't get the time to get our dragons going. What you got, Conchologist? Oh, Poison Dart can be quite good here. We don't have the mana this turn to Poison Dart down the Saboteur, but it does let us follow up with like Runeweaver Poison Dart next turn and have a really powerful response. I dig it. I dig it, kitty. Get the kitties up here hanging out. So friendly. You're so dumb. All right, let's get a unit on board. We can look to try and Pokey Stick next turn. I think I'm okay to attack here. These are all 3 damage units, right? The Legion Saboteur is technically a 3 damage attacker, and so if we trade it off the board now, it's fine, and then there shouldn't be too many units in their deck that are able to combat her down. The downside with the Runeweaver is if opponent plays Misfortune. Interesting. Naga Kaboros before us. It's pretty awkward and slow draw for opponent here. But we're just going to come in, prevent every point of damage that we can. Let's see where we start to stand. It'll be a nice play next turn to get to add the Papercraft Dragon to the board, but not going to be the case. Slipped up just a little bit. We should have played the Blade Squire on the previous turn. There's a pretty good chance we don't get to spend all of our mana this turn. And so I wanted to switch that around a little bit. It's going to turn out to be okay here, but this could have gone slightly better. Let's go ahead and try to clear out the board. This is slightly odd in what they're presenting to us, but it's like I think we have the opportunity to get some good attacks in here. Let's lead with the Midnight Raid. It's like if he wants to block, that's fine. Interesting. Does he ever try to block our Blade Squire? He does. Surprising. Big boom of damage coming through. Reasonable chance to just kill on our next turn. We can play Papercraft Dragon here, and then open with a bunch of stuff next turn. For lack of better terms, we can just do a bunch of stuff. Ooh. Maybe we can't. What you got for us? We can use the Nox and Guillotine to take down both units. We won't have the mana, but This will be safer than taking the Sigil of Malice. Right, with the Sigil, they shouldn't have combat tricks, but if they have something weird like a way to give Misfortune bonus health, just the Nox and Guillotine's going to get the guaranteed kill. Alright, now slightly awkward. It would be nice if we didn't pick up triple Papercraft, because it is an actual problem here. I'm going to manifest a fairy and see if we can't hit a lifesteal. That should be enough to end the game. Tasty Feyfolk right on point. I'm going to go about it this way. I'm going to lead with the Assistant Librarian, give him a chance to spend some mana, and then we'll follow up with the Feyfolk and attempt to give it quick attack. That's kind of nice, wasn't it? We don't want our Feyfolk getting gold carded. Okay, quick attack. Might as well just go ahead and give him the +2 attack as well. They shouldn't be able to interact with the Feyfolk, and this will get us right back up to 20. I think if it comes down to us making Papercraft Dragon attacks, that we're just going to OTK anyways, right? Opponent's at 9, and I don't think we need to save that +2 attack to deal the 4 damage on our next attack. We're going to block one, we should just block Misfortune, right? I guess if he... don't really have to. He's not gonna be able to take us down from 13. Okay. Just let it happen. Okay. We'll have to open, like, we should be coming in for 11. There is a world to where he gets to interact with us favorably here, but I mean, I think if we just gain the 14 health, we're going to win the game, even if we don't OTK here. All right, GG. We got him. Very important fairy. I'm glad we hit like all the reasons I wanted to play this deck as opposed to the Gnar deck because of those ideas against pirates, right? We hit the Blade Squires and the early game traders. We hit the Lifesteal Fairy off of the Face Sprout. That was all pretty good and exactly what I wanted to showcase as why I wanted to play this instead of the action versions. All right, next battle. Let's see if it's the old pirates again. Oh, Victor Jin. Okay. I'm curious now, like, not so much about Victor or Jin, but in the case of Kaisa, if she's still strong, if she still needs like a bit of help through something like Victor or where she stands. I feel like Kaisa should still be quite strong and not need to go the route of chasing after Victor. I've looked at a bit of the stats. It looks like Action Kaisa's doing okay. Mono Kaisa's doing a little bit worse, but has to still be a positive win rate deck. I just don't think too many people are playing it since the format just swapped. Alrighty, off to battle. This isn't a spot to where I would just run out Fizz on the first turn. I'll do that occasionally. We do find ourselves where it's a lot easier to do 16 damage than it is to do 20. So if you chunk in this initial Fizz hit, it makes your life a little bit easier down the road. But I don't think I can recommend it against P and Z. They're a little bit scary. And then I hung on to a Pokey Stick because he's playing Jin. I'm not entirely sure what his early game unit package is going to look like, but I thought that they might have a 1 health unit we would get to spike off in the early game. Hasn't come down that way, but thought we had a chance. You know, it's all you need sometimes. Okay, then these cards here, fairly weak. Somewhat interested in the Scorched Earth because we already have double Pokey Stick. Right, so you can Pokey Stick Scorched Earth and take down anything. but we could probably achieve everything we need to with just the wallop. And so we'll go ahead and snatch it up. If you're not familiar with how wallop works in conjunction with the overwhelms, you knock their unit out of combat, then your overwhelm unit does the full damage. And so it's fairly safe. Dude time tricked, and so that should shuffle away the victor shot he had on top of his deck. Whatever that thing is called, right? Claim to fame, is that what it is? Jesus, that's so far off. Death ray and claim to fame. That's that's pretty similar. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I thought it was pretty close. What you doing? Picking up quick attack? Okay. Just go ahead and bank up, let this damage hit. It's not that big of a deal. Do we want to keep getting on board? Like, the quick attack spell's not that good. We want to get Fizz in unblocked from Victor, but kind of an awkward way to have to go about it. I guess it's fine. See how this plays out. If he wants to block our Conchologist with Victor, we could technically double Pokey Stick and see what happens. But in terms of the units here, the Blade Squire is the one he wants to block the least, and so we just went ahead and put the damage on Conchologist. Interesting. We're getting pretty close to lethals here. Gonna kill something? It looks like the Lotus Trap is gonna kill our Conchologist. No, everyone has the things stacked on him. Okay, hit our Blade Squire. Not entirely sure how that's gonna play out. Okay, I think we can overbank one. Well, no, we probably have to stop here. It's gonna put our Fizz at risk if we get too clever. Hey, Papercraft. This would be much better if Papercraft Dragon only cost 5 mana, right? If we got to get out of this turn with Fizz protected by Friendship. But we still have the Pokey Stick protection. I think is worth just going for. His Death Ray isn't good enough. Mystic Shot isn't good enough. Like, our Fizz has not fantastic protection, but some. Then if Fizz dies, it's not the end of the world. We can still try and kill with our Blade Squires. It sets us back quite a bit of mana to have to do it that way, but have some options. Okay. I don't think he ever kills us this turn. Seems kind of out of reach. Do we need to stop? Like, I don't even know what Jin does. That's where we're at these days. On attack, he deals 2 to all stunned enemies. So we can, like, preemptively wallop Jin. I just don't think it's necessary. How much is coming at us? 5, 6 from Victor once it has the impact. 10, 12? Well, we're going to have to block something this turn, so. Let's protect the Blade Squire. If he has Get Excited, this is going to be quite unfortunate, but we would be pretty close to just dying to it if that wasn't the case. 10, 12, take us to 3. All right. Can't block. Well, let's go for it, friends. All right, here comes that good stuff. have the Get Excited. If he has the Get Excited, we're of course just dead. But we have exceptional ways of getting our Fizz through this turn through spells directed at him. But I mean, the thing that we probably should have like stopped and put together with our brain pieces, like most of their interactivity is just going to kill us anyways, right? If he has like Victor Death Rays, that's a little different, but Mystic Shots and Get Excited kind of cards, he would just send a face and not direct towards Fizz. Looks like he's trying to do something, but I don't think I'm worried about it. Can't progress day. What even comes out of the Tellstones that you would care about? It's Progress Day, Aftershock, and X-Tech Transmogulator. Monster Harpoon. Did not expect that one. Cancelled. I get Monster Harpoon fell from the Reggie. I was like, the fuck did that even come from? Okay. GG. That was fun. Good job, Fizz. So this is tough. There's definitely a difference between the 5 and the 6 mana Papercraft Dragon. It feels like it would have been less of a nerf if they just made Papercraft Dragon give like +1/+1 as opposed to making it cost 6 mana. That's been fairly challenging. It makes me I'm gonna have to try out the fairies version as opposed to just this one and see if it feels any better, because I really like this style of deck, but these games have been kind of crunchy, you know. not as smooth as one would like. All right, up against the Pirates again. We'll hang on to Fizz, right? This isn't like the previous match to where we need Fizz to OTK with. We'll drop Fizz on the first turn and just trade it with anything. So, see what happens. Okay, I can't block him. I did the mathematics on it. We can block a Precious Pet next turn with the Rune Weaver, but ideally we'll just get a trade here. Okay. I can't imagine he just opens. I mean, I guess I can imagine it. It just feels really good for us if he does. Okay. We hit Overwhelm. Ew, gross. Gross. Man, we could have gotten out of that too if we just played the Blade Squire. That one's on us. We didn't have like a really good reason to add the Rune Weaver and not protect our units. It's nasty. You nasty, bro. Alright, well he's taken all of our damage. We may find ourselves in a spot to where we can actually kill him. If Papercraft Dragon turns up, or if we go big with Riven now that we drew her, real OTK potential.
When will I find peace? Explosives primed.
Okay, this board's pretty good against what we have to offer. The question just comes down to: do we want to put damage onto Riven and have her risk getting hit with a Noxus Blast, right? He can't blast her this turn, but he could blast her next turn. And with this hand, like, where do we stand? We're going to pick up the third fragment because we're going to block 2 units. So 3 of our mana will go into Riven, 4 will go into the sword. That leaves us backed up with 2. And she's going to be a 4-10 attack. So I don't think we're going to be able to hit a lethal next turn. So I think we probably need to just come in and prevent the damage.
Will not break me.
We can see where it goes. We can still just generate a good open attack with Riven next turn without playing the sword. So we can get her to flip have the items on her, but then not necessarily look to play the big sword.
There is surrender and there is life. I will live. Violence to end violence.
Get in there, girl.
Moving into sight.
Interesting, just prevents 1 damage. Okay, that was pretty good. We do have an option to put a shield on Riven. I don't think she's going to find a small enough unit to block next turn. We're going to be looking to Yordle portal something onto the board.
Pretty good. Quit smoking.
I guess there would have been a way. We wouldn't have had the time to put the shield down, but it's kind of shitty. We could still get kills, though. How much do we need to invest in this? If we stop here, we're going to take 9 damage and fall to 6. Which is pretty good. It's like I'm envisioning this next turn. If we load up the Yordle Squire, we need to get it to 9, right? Because we have the wallop, so it's going to be like 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe up to 7 from Trinket Trade. Not enough. We're going to have to find something off this portal. Petty Officer's kind of interesting. Oh, it's a play ability that puts 2 units on the board. Alright.
I obey.
So we just take 8 this way. Okay. Or fall to 8 this way, take 7. You're doing the Lord's work here, Yordle Squire. You're on board and ready. I have Naga Kaboros. Why wouldn't you do that before you attack? What's in hand to where he didn't open with that? Interesting. That would kind of lead me to think that they just already have a Decimate. And they were kind of considering, well, if I get to bank up my mana, we could do 2 burn spells. I could see it being something like that. Alright, so we got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to have to head off the Trinket Trade. Oh, he's just going to have a removal? Fucking fine. We were getting so close. What did we hit? Maybe we hit a... Does Bandle Tellstones give us enough? It's our only out. It's so expensive. Gets us, we can't do the wallop play anymore. This is 4, 5, 8. 6, 7, or 10. We needing to just not block. Oh, fine, whatever. Fine, whatever. But that one still probably comes down to us on the turn 2, where we didn't protect our Fizz. That game would have been a completely different story if we that would have just like canceled the entire Make It Rain, right? We would have still had our 2 units on board and then just picked up a combat trick with Trinket Trade. And so that one's on us. We should have had in our brain piece that Make It Rain is a thing. The fuck are these things? Is that a Shen? The fuck? When did he grow so many muscles? Oh, it's Galio. I don't think I've ever seen this. Is that Infernal Galio? God, he's got those abs chiseled out of granite and lava. What a fucking beast. But alright. Some kind of Taric Aphelios. I feel okay starting with Fizz. We don't have to now that we picked up the Blade Squire, but there's not I don't feel like there's a lot of games to where they're going to have a turn 1 answer to Fizz, so we get to chunk that little bit of damage in. And then they shouldn't interact with him very well. So he has a lot of opportunities for greatness. getting the big later game OTKs.
Just follow the yellow light.
He doesn't have any units on board. We can realistically have a good assistant librarian next turn. Like if he banks up to 3, goes into the next turn, and then plays a Vanguard Sergeant, whatever 3/3 is going to be in their deck. Have some good opportunities there. Interesting. No reason to Moon Weapon right there. You're just full bank all that mana. Let's live dangerously, all right. We can go with picks. I think he's like, I think he's trying to set up a Gravitum, and so it's like if he plays Gravitum, he's going to do it right now. Oh, he goes Crescendum. Interesting. I would have sworn he would be going for the removal spell and trying to take down our librarian. So let's just give it... Do we want to give it the permanent boost? Like his blocks here are just so bad across the board. Let's save the spell for Fizz. We're kind of lacking in spells outside the Conchologist, and then he still like has to block the librarian, or he's going to let us draw a spell. Not expect. Oh, came from Elite. So I was like, I already forgot about the Crescendum. I was like, man, I was not expecting him to play an Elite here. No, this is fine. We get in a lot of damage. We don't get to pick up a spell, of course, but he got heavily invested there, and it didn't pay off too much. What you got? Quickens. It's kind of interesting in the face of the bird. He plays another unit, and then we just get to send the Broadwing back to hand. Okay. Not gonna play out like that, but this is fine. No single combat. Excellent. Then we're just gonna have to open here. It would be nice to get Riven on the board, but this is a turn where opponent's going to drop like a Screeching Dragon or something, and we're not going to get a good attack in. Rip picks. Fought valiantly, friend. You fought valiantly. It wasn't enough at the end of the day, but I applaud your efforts. Okay.
Together, we can do this.
You can do this.
All right, there's that board fill we were worried about. I think we're still okay. He should have a reasonable amount of trouble dealing with Fizz, and then we have lots of protection for Fizz. He should be able to get an elusive kill next turn. Gonna be a lifesteal moon weapon? Sure is. I checked to see if I approve of that, and I do not. Do we want to go ahead and send it back, though? Kind of want the wallet for next turn in case we pick up a... Oh, we can let it happen. Like, we can still quicken in combat, but it's like, you have to stop and worry, like, okay, does he have a combat trick that can grow him outside of a quicken? And he probably doesn't, let's be real.
Take my hand.
Easy does it.
I was being real with you. Bastion. Guess he does have a combat trick. Still not letting that shit happen. It's a no thank you. And this should be pretty tough to get out of. Yeah, he gives up on it. GG.
At
Feels nice to get the wins on occasion without the papercraft. Just get out here and boom it. Now, granted, that guy's draw was not very good. He did stumble, but this does, produce those random aggro draws to where you're just like, LOL, here's a curve and an elixir of wrath. Have fun. So, nice little punish. Three victories feels good. This is all we got up to in our previous video. That was a real monster of of things going wrong. So it feels nice to win a game or two. There we go, Action Kaisa. Real curious how this comes together. Again, this is I was a fan of Mono Kaisa more so than Action Kaisa. There's of course different camps of both, but I really liked the concept of being all in on Kaisa and then using your Rite of Callings to get to get your Kaisa active, and then her flip into supercharge is of course kind of one of the cornerstones of the deck. And so I just didn't like the more value-oriented approach of playing action. But now that the format's a little bit slower, maybe it's not as bad. See if he has action here. I'm like more than happy to just take 2 damage and then like play a librarian and get a good attack in. Alright, well, he can't give it Challenger, so we don't have to worry about it this turn. It's a little unfortunate. Like, I was thinking in the last game that we probably should have gone Spear for our Librarian, and then we didn't do it. Or I'm sorry, we should have gone Shield. And then now we're in kind of another spot to where the Shield would be extra good, but it's okay. Interesting. What can he play to punish us from dropping the second Librarian? Has to be like a what's that thing called? The Vagabond. I don't know if they even play it. Oh, he just lets us draw. Excellent. Excellent, I tell you.
I do not break rules.
I bend them slightly.
I hope that was mud.
Hope that was mud. So many good voice lines coming out of Blade Squire. I love this guy. He's sad sometimes, he's cold, he's hungry. He's got rocks in his boots, I feel sad for him on those days, but he does have some other good ones on there. Hope it's mud. It's a poop joke, right? It's poop. He's hoping that he didn't step in poop. for those of you all that aren't getting it. All right, I'm going to pass. Let's let him go ahead and get into combat. If we go to our next turn and then just bank a ton of mana, that's fine. Just overbanking one's not that big of a deal. Looking to see if we can have this set up to where we can kill with Fizz. Killing from 16 is going to be kind of hard to do without a papercraft, but we do have the second attack from the Ruined Reckoner. So, like, as it stands, we are at 3, 4, 5, 6. Ooh, we hit the +2 for 7, 8. Okay. Alright, Fizz. I like to go for it. I wonder if he ever blocks with action. If he blocks our Librarian with action. Because that's kind of dangerous, right? Let's see what he does. Now, well, I was going to say there's sometimes an argument to not let him get into combat. That's like a Whirling Death kind of argument, right? Brings in the block. No, thank you. What are we taking here? Rainbow Fish? I think that's okay, in case we need to get into a elusive combat next turn. All right, we might have done it. Might have did it real good. All right, Totes apprope. Draw off the emote, cupcake it a little bit. Say, thanks, friend. I like to party too. Alright, GG. The ocean wins again. Thanks, Fizz. Yeah, we gotta get to Masters. Like, I don't know. Like, I know I took like a week off, and then I had to take a couple more days off. So I'm out. I'm out like 7, 8, 9 days of playing. So I gotta get caught up. I'm not worried about making seasonals. We've had no issue with getting up inside like the top 200 or so. The thing I need to start pushing for is I saw on the last seasonals the Jason Florent made the top cut like barely being inside the top 100 or being right around the top 100. It used to be that you had to be in like the top 30, and I don't know if it's just a function of who made it to the event or how the event fell and how the math worked out and stuff, but getting inside of the top 30 is something that would be exceptionally hard for me to do. Like if I focused like solely on Runeterra and didn't play other games casually and spent a lot of time like really focusing in and crafting in with one deck, I could get into the top 30 kind of like early in the season, but it's not something I feel like could very realistically do at the end of the season. But I feel like I could potentially just go in there and then sit within the top 100, or maybe even just push through enough to get there. But I usually look at it as like it's pretty easy to get, at least easy for me to get inside the top 200, and then not worry about it anymore. Because it's like I know I'm just not gonna get inside the really high numbers there. All right. Well, Purple Berry Shake was an interesting pickup. I'm curious to see if he wants to tango with his other units here. I say probably not, but nice takedown on the Soul Shepherd. He plays a Vile Feast or something, then by all means, congrats. All right. Now we can start to build up into this Riven. Oh, fuck. So the worrisome thing with the Grand Plaza is if he starts to drop, like the Horse Rider, whatever it's called. Haunted Relic's even worse. Horse Rider being... oh shit, this Lucian's gonna flip in combat too. Horse Rider being the Hecarim flip spell. What is this called? Hecarim's Onslaught of Shadows. Nailed it. Okay. Man, I feel like we could pretty reasonably OTK next turn. Papercraft Dragon cost 5. It's so awkward not getting to drop this until turn 7. Alright, so he's going to kill our board, flip his Lucian. We can take this 8 hit from Lucian. Let me double check that he doesn't rally, right? Okay. Sinner! That's what Lucian says. in case you were wondering. That's how he talks and stuff.
To serve the greater good.
Oh shit, he did. I did the Oracle's Eye and it didn't list. Like I can point to the screen. I'm trying to like point to the little thing over top of the pass button. But I hit the Oracle's Eye specifically looking to see if he was catching a rally, and it didn't show up. That's kind of fucking annoying. Not necessarily out of it, but... whatever, game. So that cancels our turn. We can't attack into these and give him a rally. We might just be dead. If he has like a Glimpse from Beyond or a way to kill off one of his units, then we'll die. But if we get to go into the next turn and then put a stun onto Lucian, then we still have opportunities to get kills on our following attack. We have to block the Lucian here, so kind of is what it is. Dang. And so, yeah, I think I would have set that up a little bit differently, right? If we didn't have to take 16 from Lucian, that would have given us a little bit more flexibility to push through. And I'm not entirely sure why the thing didn't show up, the rally token. I know that we shouldn't, like, 100% count on the Oracle's Eye to be accurate in every situation, but I felt like that it typically the Oracle's Eye gets weird when there's like circles involved, right? If you say like play Cataclysm, you can't see what happens after the fact, and so that was very odd that there's no like circles involved in anything happening there, skills, if you will, and it wouldn't just show us the outcome of the rally, or maybe it did and I just looked at it wrong. I don't know. It's always Riot's fault when we can. Oh shit! So much for attacking. It's always Riot's fault though when we have the opportunity to place blame on something. What do we got? Not a great collection here. Let's just go with the Quicken. It can be useful in terms of some of their units. So they play a unit that kills off something and then you send that back to their hand. Okay. Those 1 mana hate spikes, look out. Alright, so we're going to get like a little bit behind in terms of our tokens, right? We didn't play Riven pre-combat, so we don't get the thing there, but I do want to play her now, because the way our mana is going to sequence, if we go into the next turn with a 3 bank here, then we just play Riven and then overbank 1, or we didn't have the full way to spend all of that mana. I think we're okay for the moment. Not exactly worried about Atrocity at this stage of the game. What you got for me? An expensive Papercraft Dragon or a Quick Quill? Let's just take the Quick Quill. We can get our Riven into combat now. Not expecting too much out of this turn. Okay. What do we got? Do we want any of these? Death Lotus isn't going to do anything. This is just going to have to be a Prowling Projectile. So it's like, are we going to start going for the Papercraft Dragon? That's the big thing here, and how are we going to go about it? I think it's safe. Let's see. I don't quite feel like we need to overwrite Riven. We're not going to get an OTK next turn. I don't want to spew into a Quicksand or spew into a whatchamacallit, like a Vengeance. Interesting. Putting the damage on our or just pulling our things out of combat. Oh man, is he building up to a Atrocity? Make sure we don't fall below Atrocity range. Alright. Seems fine. We need to pick up, well, we don't have any Overwhelms at the moment, which is kind of awkward. We should pick up 1 next turn just because Riven's on the board. But it's like, are we really going to take the time to put down the Riven's sword is the question. I think we're kind of stuck having to. Well, I guess the other side is if he has a quicksand, he just gets to shut down both of our units anyways. All right. So scary, conchologist. You only have 1 health. But I think it's too risky just to go in with a single overwhelm. I don't think we get enough done this turn. So if he has the vengeance or something and has to invest a ton of mana in it, it's fine. If he has a quicksand, it's less than ideal, but we play into quicksand okay. So who's our kind of safety net here? I think we want to boost Riven. There's just more ways for things to go wrong with Riven. Or do we just, like, give up on the turn? We got to make him spend the mana. We can't let him be like, LOL, okay, here's a Nasus, and then next turn play a... Atrocity. To make him do something. And then if he, like, Vengeance is 1, we still have, like, options on the others to Prowling Projectile and Weapon Hilt. We did get the Atrocity out of them. So Riven will definitely be short. She doesn't have double attack here. Okay, that seems fine. We do have to worry about, like, a second Atrocity, I guess, but these decks usually play, like, 1 or 2. You usually don't play 3, so we might be okay. Especially if he just, like, plays Thresh this turn. I think that feels pretty good. Ruined Reckoner was an interesting draw, getting to send Riven in again this round. Whoa. That has to feel good never. I did the mathematics on when that feels good, and it is never. We don't even have to play anything, right? It's like, how safe do we feel just passing into the next turn, right? And then opening with our Riven and our Librarian. I think we'd be short on the damage. We'd have 4, 5, 6, 7, like 8, 9 with the thing, with the whatever it's called. All right, we got him. Felt like a bit of a stretch, but we got there.
At last, a way forward.
That's kind of why when let's hype up the things I do. That's like when we play the Alawi decks. I like to play the Attune units because you have, like, a lot of these expensive spells to where you want to play Tentacle Slams, you want to play the Draw 2, you want to play the 6 cost thing that does 4 damage. If you're playing Lux, you probably play things like Concerted Strike in there. It's just like such a big mountain of mana at the top end that you can run into those draws to where you can just play 1 card a turn. And that's what we were trying to abuse there. Was what in order for him to win the game from that point, he needed to spend like 6 mana on a Vengeance, and then spend a bunch of mana on like a Nasus, and then spend a bunch of mana on an Atrocity. And we were trying to keep those places away from them to where they could get that happening. Oh, come on, matchmaking. If we're gonna have to sit here and talk about stuff, you might see these decks up here. We got Draft 1, Draft 2, Draft 3. About to have some limited based material for you all that should be coming up here in the upcoming weeks. Joined a nice draft league, and so get back to those glory days of just playing Expedition every time, saying, LOL, look at these people playing Constructed. Losers. Say, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to play Expedition all day. come back to the drafts in a little bit. We should have that in a start to have that content stuff in a week or two. But anyways, back to the final battle. No draft final battles, no expedition final battles, just a constructed final battle here today. And reasonable enough start. We have an okay-ish curve. Fizz doesn't play super well into these decks because they play Blighted Ravines, right? Blighted Ravine is the tip-top answer to getting an early Fizz off of the board. So I didn't really want to have to commit a Fizz, but I do want to chip in some damage if we can. Okay.
Spilled paint is just accidental art.
So you can discard Catalyst to the Aeons.
Can I paint you?
I wonder what that means if he just has a hand that's already full of ramp cards. Right, because you can play the Sketcher on 1, nothing on turn 2, and then still Catalyst to the Aeons on turn 3. And so I would think that would point to them just having a bunch of ramp already. Maybe they have kind of an awkward draw here. This is so brutal. I really don't want to pass this turn with no play.
I bear a message from. Oh, hey, what's that?
All right, well, I at least feel like he probably doesn't have a Blighted Ravine now. Right, I don't think he would have committed Zoe if he had it. He might still have like a Mount Targon or whatever the thing is called to cause some problems, but I don't think the AoEs are going to be coming at us. Alright, Fizz, what can you do next turn? We don't have the +2 attack token in our hand, which is kind of problematic. Sunburst? No. Just no. that's all we have to say at the end of that one. Now, there would be an argument out of that play to pick up the stress defense. And so if they're going to drop one of their big expensive plays, we have the potential to stress defense it out, or you can protect Fizz with it. But the way this game is shaped up, I just don't feel like that stuff is going to be necessary. Oh, wow. All right, well, squad. Very interesting pass. And I was hoping we were going to get to kill with the Sigil of Malice. I think we're going to be a little bit short now that he's Blighted Ravine. It doesn't deal damage to players anymore. So, sad day. Trip to Frowntown, right? Just got to do a little bit, though. What the Grandfather Fae? He generates the spell shielded units.
From behind a basilisk.
Is he just waiting for a Blighted Ravine? Like, fine. You know, fine. Buried in the ice. That makes sense, I guess. We have the spell shield protection, though. Laser beam. Nice. All right. Rip it and roll it, am I right? Not a bad set of games. Not a bad set of games. And so that was tough. Like thinking in terms of where we stand with the Papercraft Dragon, right? It certainly got some wins. We certainly got some OTKs with it, but 6 mana is a humongous difference compared to 5, right? The things that you used to be able to do at 6 mana were like come into your turn, drop Papercraft Dragon, and then with your 3 mana banked +1, then you could, play a card plus a might. You could play a Riven Sword plus a might. You could play Friendship on its own if you needed to, right? That was the big thing that you would have coming out of the Gnar deck, is that you would go into your turn 6. So, right, you would play, say, a Ruin Runner on turn 5. You would roll into your turn 6. You would have 3 mana banked up. You spend the Papercraft Dragon for 5. Then you have mana to play Rite of Negation. You could play Supercharge. You could play your, kind of expensive spell suite while having the mana to kind of push through. And then if, depending on if you were on the odd or the even attack, you are punching in on turn 6 or turn 7. Now that it costs 1 more mana, you can't really punch in with the Papercraft Dragon until like turn 7 or turn 8. And so, I feel like we had pretty good success here. We had some good, usage in rounds with the Ruined Reckoner, but I feel like I was expecting better opportunities to use Friendship, which just didn't turn up. And then I think where I, like, probably for our next video, I guess, where I want to take it is to, how does this feel if we take out the things like the Ruined Reckoner and the Friendship, and then we get to add in the Fey Lantern, and then we get to add in the Grandfather Fey. The important thing with the Grandfather Fey is in like that last game to where you generate the fairies that have the spell shield, and it gives you another angle of attack with this Papercraft Dragon. Because now that it's so expensive, adding in the fairies package gives us the option to either, play it for 4 mana instead of 6 if we have the Fairy Lantern on board, or it lets us, generate those spell shielded units, and then you get to feel much safer going into your next attack with that unit having spell shield Papercraft Dragon, that you don't have to sit around on cards like Friendship. And so I'm not entirely certain, because then it starts to be like, well, if we're gonna involve this into being like a heavy fairies deck, right? That's the direction it's taking. It's pushing away from this faster OTK style and into a more go wide fairies thing. Then are we just better off playing Aphelios in the Winding Light, right? Kind of the more classic fairies deck, instead of using the Fizz Riven version, using the Aphelios thing, which may have some merit to it, right? Given especially all the pirates that are running around, having access to Aphelios, and then is kind of like a double way to get that lifesteal onto the board. And so it's interesting, right? The deck was definitely less performant than it was in the past, but we also put up a pretty good performance today, getting 6-2. We messed up that one Pirates game, and I thought we had a pretty good looking run otherwise, but we did dodge a lot of the bad matchups. You can even see over here on the bad matchup section, it has Pirates as a bad one, Annie Jen is another real bad one. I'm surprised to see Trundlemere as a bad one, but it looks like this is just everything we're expecting at the top of the meta right now, leaning towards being a bad matchup, but I'm not sure how old this data is. It says 15 games against Pirates, which would kind of like lead me to believe it's new data, but it would have to be. It would be way more games if it was in the 3.12 patch. But nonetheless, we're getting kind of rambly, and so that is going to do it for us today. Hope everyone enjoyed the video. I hope you learned how to get the wins, Papercraft and without. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way and had a good time watching. This is Bust, and we thank you for being here.